Shout out Sniper T on the beat.
Tamara to the break of dawn is on the rise, with life on the forefront of the mind. So line for line, you can ride this brain train and you can change your station without even touching the dial. So relax, stay a little bit, but listen for a while. And whether you're bumping this in the whip or in a business fit, it's a meeting you won't want to miss. A meeting for a meal to feed the soul with words for the mind. So sit back, enjoy the ride. Time to take off, it's time to fly. Cause Tamara till the break of dawn is on the rise.
Hey, y'all. It's me, Tamara. Yes. Thank you so much for tuning in. Welcome to the show. To all my new listeners, new episodes usually drop, well, I don't know, most of the time they drop on Thursdays. Clearly, this episode is not dropping on Thursday, but I do always talk about my life, my interests, and the ways I'm trying to grow. So come on back through, you feel me? And go ahead and subscribe, follow, whatever you got to do on whatever platform you're listening to. That way you will get the notifications, right? Now, to all of my day 1, 2, 67, 103, 220, because we have that many weeks that I can say, you could have came in at week 220 and decided, you know what, I'm going to keep rocking with her. And that would be 13 weeks ago. Like, the more that I continue on this journey, first of all, the more that I really appreciate this show, especially this particular series, but the more that I go on this journey, it's just so interesting because I'm like, wow, I've really been doing this for 4.5 years at this point. Someone who could barely be consistent with creative stuff in the past. So yeah, today's episode, Rejection. And this episode is going to be a little bit different than the others in the sense that nothing current happened with this. So this isn't about a rejection that happened this week or, since the last episode or recently. This is actually more so about how past rejections really hinder me from doing the things that I want to do. And so let's get into it with defining the word rejection, because, I like to know what things really mean before I get into the rest of the episode. So the act or process of rejecting, the state of being rejected, something that is rejected. Now, whenever I look up a word in general, and if the word is a part of the definition, like depending on I'm trying to think what this is called when you use different forms of the word, I guess. I know there's like an actual technical term, but I'm just going to say when I use different forms of the word, like rejection versus reject. So because I chose rejection, rejecting and rejected is going to be a part of it. So let's dive a little deeper into the definition, is the whole point of what I'm saying. So reject means to refuse, to have, take, recognize, etc., to refuse to grant a request, demand, etc., to refuse to accept someone or something, rebuff, or to discard as useless or unsatisfactory. Now, the first time I looked that up, because I actually looked it up before I started recording, when I read that last one, I almost got a little bit emotional, to discard as useless or unsatisfactory, because the reality that I know for me, and you may be able to relate to this, is part of the problem with rejection is that I then take on someone else's rejection of me, be it a job, be it a relationship that maybe I desired, it could be a apartment I'm trying to move into. I take that rejection not the way that I should be taking it. So I should be taking it that this is especially for me, because I am someone that is trying to live my life the way that I believe God wants me to. So if I'm wanting to be in alignment with his plans for my life, then for me, and this should be true for you too, if that's how you're trying to live your life, but if I'm trying to live my life in alignment with God's plans for my life, then that means that rejection is redirection. It's just him saying, you know what? Nope, this is not for you. I have something better for you. And so I'm going to redirect you from having your focus on this thing that is not for you and help you redirect your focus towards the thing that I actually have for you. So that's how I should be receiving rejection. But unfortunately, how I have received rejection is that I must be unworthy, I must be useless or unsatisfactory to the person or the job or just whatever. So then the problem with that thought process is that then it has actually hindered me from even like, we've just got to this point, and I'll use this guy that I like that I've mentioned on here before. I didn't tell y'all who, because I'm not finna tell y'all who, but I have mentioned that there is, a thing like that happening in my life. And it's a friend of mine. And the reality is the deeper we get into our friendship, the more solidified all of this is, like in my heart or whatever. But here's the thing that I realized this week is that part of why, I won't even say part of why, the main reason why I really struggle with even trying to actually, I guess, move forward or say anything or whatever, it's not because I've never been that person to do that. I've said that on here before, but it's that I realize certain rejections in my life have just affected me in such a way that now there is so much fear and there's so much, I don't feel like going through that again. And it's not even that, it's actually in my mind, I give myself so many reasons why, nah, this, that, and the other, and not nah to him, more like nah to, nah, he probably, not gonna for this reason, that reason, and the other. And then because it's somebody that I'm going to see regardless, I am like, I don't really want to go through that, even though there is nothing about this person that would ever be unkind or whatever. Like, I know we would still be able to be friends, even if that wasn't, what he was on or whatever, if I brought it up. But still, this whole feeling like I'm useless, or I don't want to say useless. In this case, it'd be unworthy or unsatisfactory. That is the issue. And so it's been really interesting this week because, long story short, in a roundabout way that literally had nothing to do with how I arrived here, but I guess it really did because it helped me arrive here, I realized that 3 past rejections in my life have had such a negative effect on me in different ways, not just this particular situation, even just how I approach life, to where what I actually had to do, which sounded wild, like my mind is still blown when I really think about it, because I'm very much someone who knows the power of forgiveness. I'm very much someone who knows that forgiveness is not for the other person. Forgiveness is not about co-signing with what they did and saying it's okay. It's not saying the way that they treated me was okay. Forgiveness is really me saying, you know what? You no longer owe me. I am canceling this debt. Why? Not for you, but for me, because I no longer want to be tied to the emotions that I feel, the thought processes that I have adopted as a result of having unforgiveness in my heart. So that's why I'm always a big advocate of people forgiving. Now, I learned these principles because I went through Fresh Start many different times in my life. But nevertheless, the principles are true and they're based on things that, is talked about in the Bible. Now, here's the thing. I was watching this clip on Instagram. So, scrolling Instagram, there's a lot of different, there's so many different types of accounts that I follow. There is the dark humor accounts that I follow is so funny. There's also, friends, family, different maybe actors or actresses or just entertainers that I follow. It's kind of rare on that. I don't follow every entertainer or even just celebrity. It's like you have to be a particular, like, I really liked your character on a show, or just, I don't know. But there's that. But then there's also like the different pastors or inspirational, spiritual accounts that I follow that give biblical wisdom. And so this pastor, I can't even remember his name, but his clip went through my feed. And so I watched it, and it said that you have to forgive the person who rejected you. So let's y'all, you have to forgive the person who rejected you. Maybe to you that makes, sense, and you're just like, yeah, of course. But for me, it was this eye-opening, mind-blowing thing where the Lord has been doing a lot of healing in my life, because the reality is that with this person that I like, there will be certain interactions that we have, nothing negative this person has done at all. But for whatever reason, I'll be triggered in different ways. And when I'm triggered in these different ways, what I know is that a trigger is an indicator that there's still more healing to happen, right? Triggers usually in my life have nothing to do with the current circumstances or situation that happened, but it's more so about this wound that is still not healed, because there's levels and layers to everything, right? So there's this wound that is still not healed that needs attention. And I'm in a place right now in time as I'm being triggered where the Lord is like, hey, let me bring this to your attention because I want to heal it, right? So this is what continually happens. And so what I love about this whole situation, even though it's not going as fast as people feel like I should have it happen or whatever, because man, months ago, so many people are like, you should say something or you should whatever. No, because, oh my gosh, I was so much more broken months ago. Like, I am so much more healed now, to where the longer that I go, more so focusing on healing as, this journey is going, than really just focusing on how much I like this person or whatever. It has been such a beautiful thing, because I am continuing to become more and more healed and whole ultimately. And I just think whoever I end up with will get just the best version of me. And that's what's important. This is why I'm such a promoter of don't just go from relationship to relationship. The next person, it's not their job to heal you. It's your job to come to them already healed. And that may take time depending on what you've been through, right? And so with that, forgiving the person who rejected you. Now, let's dive a little bit deeper into what forgiveness does. So, unforgiveness, right? When you refuse to forgive someone for what they did, you are chaining yourself to that person, because you are saying, you owe me. They're not paying this debt that you feel like they owe you. And so you're walking around with this person chained to you. You're walking around with the emotions associated with that offense chained to you. You're walking around with, as they say, vows that you made of maybe I'm never going to do this or I'm always going to do this. You're walking around with all this weight chained to you and this person that you don't like, because you are choosing to not forgive them. However, when you forgive them, you break those chains away. So you break away the thoughts that you have about yourself. You break away the vows that you've made. You break away ultimately that person, and you set yourself free. That's why forgiveness is so important. Now, let's bring this to rejection. This fourth definition of to discard as useless or unsatisfactory or worthless, not worthy, right? Because useless, I would never call myself useless. However, feeling like I'm not worthy of A, B, or C, I have definitely thought that. So if I choose to forgive my rejecter, that means I am breaking the chain of feeling unworthy because they didn't see my worth. And I won't even say it's they didn't see my worth. Who cares, right? Obviously, that's not what God had for me, because remember, rejection is redirection. And that's really true for everyone. You know what I mean? It's redirecting your time, energy, focus away from something that is not for you to something that is for you. So regardless of whether you're someone who tries to live your life according to God's plans, that's still true regardless, because if someone rejects you, you can't continue to stay focused on something or someone or somewhere that does not want to receive what it is that you have to offer. So you're ultimately going to redirect your time, energy, and focus to the thing that you should, right? So if I am choosing to forgive the person who rejected me, that means I am cutting away the chain of feeling unworthy. So that means ultimately, if I'm not feeling unworthy, I'm realizing I am worthy. If I'm not feeling unsatisfactory, I'm realizing I am satisfactory. If I'm not feeling useless, we'll go ahead and go with the definition they have, then I am feeling useful, right? Now, here's the thing. When it comes to really anything, it could be a job, a dream, but for sure with relationships, I'll stay focused on that, because if I am struggling with fear of rejection to the point that it's hindering me, because I mean, none of us really want to be rejected, right? But if I'm struggling with it and I have so many wounds related to this, to the point that it's hindering me from moving forward, here's the thing. In interactions, if you look for it, you will find it. So there could be a situation where somebody doesn't respond to a text quick enough, or it don't even got to be that. It could be just you send a text, right? And you already may have some apprehension that they're not going to respond. And let's say they don't respond. Your reason in your mind for why they didn't respond is because you're not good enough. There could be so many other reasons why they don't respond. I can think of somebody right now that yesterday I said, hey, I'm going to do this when I get to the office. And the way that my work day went, it did not happen. Today, at the time of this recording, shout out to 12 Kyle. Today is my off day, so I'm not doing any work today. I have really tried to be really good about having 24 hours at the very least. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are days where I, don't work super late and all that. So I'm not saying I'm working 24/7 the other days, but I make it a point, since Friday is our day off, to have 24 hours that I do not work. So I usually start at 8 a.m. ish on Friday, and from 8 a.m. Friday to 8 a.m. Saturday, nothing work related, right? Now, sometimes we can't help, like we have events and stuff, and then I have to shift what day that is. But regardless, I make it a point to have 24 hours, right? So it's not that I hate this person, or it's not that, this person isn't good enough, or it's not that whatever. It's that things got chaotic in my work day, and I just kind of forgot about it until late last night when it was too late. And so the reality is that, though, if that person is somebody who's struggling with fear of rejection in an unhealthy way, because again, none of us want to be rejected. And this actually has nothing to do with rejection, the scenario that I'm talking about related to work, but I'm going to just use this anyway, because the whole point is I didn't text that person back. My last text was, hey, I'm going to do this. And then I didn't do it. Now, when I do what I'm supposed to do tomorrow, I will be apologetic and explain. But if there's someone who's struggling with rejection and they're looking for rejection, they're going to perceive that as rejection, even though that's not what it is. And that's what I would do, where any thought of vulnerability, right? Because being vulnerable, it's not just about sharing fears, insecurities, whatever. A lot of times for me, the vulnerability that I really struggle with is letting somebody know how much they mean to me, or how excited I am about something, or that I want this or want that or whatever. Like, That's stuff that I struggle with. Like being nonchalant, not because I don't care, because I'm scared to put myself out there. Why? Because I was allowing past rejection to hinder me from moving forward. And so with that, how can you overcome past rejection? You really have to forgive the person who rejected you. Like you do. You really have to also go through the healing process. This is a part of it, right? But even outside of the forgiveness piece, because I did a lot of work to heal from past rejection before I even there was literally, if I'm honest, nowhere in my mind that I was thinking I needed to forgive the people who rejected me. And the three specific people that came to mind when I watched this video, and it's so funny because the Lord didn't start there, because if he would have started where I ended up, I probably wouldn't have gone there, just because it's a touchy subject and I probably would have been annoyed. So what it started with is I watched this video, my mind was blown. So the Lord got my attention through this pastor, and he said I needed to forgive this guy. So one of the first situationships that I had after my divorce, he said that I needed to forgive him. My mind was blown with that because, when things didn't pan out the way that I thought they would, I accepted it and I was like, oh, well, that's not who the Lord has for me. So, okay. But then as I said, okay, it's so interesting how I can compartmentalize things and I can sit down and be like, okay, Lord, allow me to feel the feelings that are there or whatever, or okay, Lord, I'm going to do this, whatever. And I'll literally just kind of sit and be still and then just go through whatever process. So it's really interesting how I've come to this place of doing that. And so I sat there and I started with that. And for me, healing always involves crying, because it's like these are the feelings that I feel. Lord, let me feel these feelings so I can understand what's going on, but then I'm going to release them to you. And for me, releasing them to him is via crying. I don't know why on TikTok and all this stuff, they make healing seem like this beautiful thing with bubble baths and journals and whatever. And I'm sure that's a part of it. But then there's the part of healing that is very messy, because you are ultimately, in some ways, having to relive the pain that you experienced in that moment, right? So I'm going through there and I'm like, okay. And then it just went to forgiving my ex-husband for his rejection. Now, it's very interesting. I'm not sure how this whole thing works, because he is the girl's dad. So he was killed almost 9 years ago. And I thought I had made peace. I mean, like, we had a conversation rehashing the past and all that, because we had never really had like a conversation after our divorce about anything. We just happened to have one. I think that was just God's kindness 2 months before he died. And so I have, in my mind, held no grudges against this man, especially since, even before he died, right? But apparently I was holding on to feelings of unworthiness because of his rejection. I don't say apparently, obviously I was. So then it's okay. I'm processing that rejection and I'm forgiving him, right? Here's a disclaimer about forgiveness. And this is obviously true with him in particular, but it's going to be true of all three of these people. I am not going to go back to any of these people and say, hey, I forgive you for what you did. When you forgive someone, this is why it's for you and it's not for them. You don't have to go tell the person, hey, I forgive you for whatever. So just keep that in mind, especially if it's a scenario where they may not even know what they did, right? You don't have to go say, oh, I forgive you. Because again, forgiveness is for you. It's not for the other person. If you've paid attention to the emphasis on things I've said, it's been about breaking chains that were holding you back from moving forward to whatever it is God has for you. And so then after I'm at this place of forgiving my ex-husband for rejecting me, next thing you know, we're on the topic of my bio dad. Like, what? Now, with him, there is some fresh stuff with rejection, probably within the last, I think it was a little over a year ago. Time is just so wild where I feel like I don't know what anything is or when anything happened, honestly, since 2020. But I think it was the beginning of last year is when he, had been battling throat cancer, became cancer free. Now, when he had this diagnosis and was like really sick and in the hospital and this, that, and the other, we had reconnected because I reached out when I found out, just to catch up those of you who have not been listening to my show forever. So I reached out when I found out he had cancer. It's, I love you. I'm so glad you're my daughter, this, that, and the other. Mind you, I am his only child. So I'm his only child that has blessed him with 3 grandchildren and a great grandson. So like his legacy has expanded because of me and me alone. Yet he doesn't really want anything to do with me for whatever reasons, right? So once he became cancer free, and as I guess he started feeling better, maybe that's when the communication started to taper off, because I just started noticing a shift and I was like, okay, here we go again. And I had no expectations of this scenario causing our relationship to just get back together. So let me put that out there. However, the last text that I got from him was that he was cancer free, feeling better, blah, blah, blah. I tried to reach out a few more times. He didn't respond. So then I stopped. And so with him, there is recent, like way more recent than the other 2 rejections, right? And so here's the thing. I had to forgive him for rejecting me. I did not expect that to be a part. I didn't expect any of this to be a part of it, but I did not expect the Lord to take me there. And so that's why I say if he would have started there, I don't know. But when I think about it, all of these things went together to where, had there not have been that initial rejection when I was little, and also at different points in early adulthood and even recent adulthood, like over the past, from 19 till now, so over the past 25 years almost, I can think of 3 specific, actually 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 specific instances of rejection from him. And here's the thing, had that not have been a thing, I don't know. I may have navigated a lot of things different in my life to where I may not have had the marriage that I had. And then had I not have had the marriage that I had, I may not have had that first situationship that I had after my divorce. So here's the thing. I'll never know because life went the way that it went and I can't change anything about what happened. But what is my responsibility and what I can do is not allow the past to hinder me from whatever it is God has for me in the future. And so, yes, you have to heal, right, from past offenses and this, that, and the other, especially when it comes to rejection, but you have to forgive that person. And then with that, what I have been really intentional about this week ever since then is, and it's so funny because the more that I do it, the less anxiety that I have about it. But having forgiven them and the freedom that has come from, and it wasn't this quick thing. I was crying for a long time and just sitting there and going through all that and praying and just all these things, right? So it wasn't this like 3-minute thing, right? But here's the thing. Since then, as I interact with this person that I like, what I've noticed is there have always been different moments where I could be vulnerable that I would choose not to. And so what I have done this week is intentionally, when these moments come up, push past my fears, push past my anxiety, and act opposite of the lies that I'm believing in that moment, and be true to what I actually feel or think related to whatever conversation we're having. And regardless of what the outcome will be of all of this, I am just so much more free to be me, right? And one of the big things with Fresh Start that they talk about is free to love and be loved. Now, it doesn't just have to be in an intimate relationship like dating or marriage or whatever. But a lot of times when it comes to rejection and fear of rejection, it will hinder us even in just having friendships or community or stuff like that. And so all of these principles are going to transcend to like every area of your life. But for me in particular, the Lord is just, since there's this guy that I like, I guess he's like, all right, well, if this is what you want, be it like him, which I mean, obviously that is true, but just a relationship in general, if this is what I want, I have to be healthy and whole so that I can offer this person that and not offer this person a bunch of brokenness and insecurity and fears and all this stuff that really is just not going to be a healthy scenario for him, right? So just to make sure you guys are clear on what your tips are as far as to how you can stop allowing rejection to hinder you from moving forward is one, tap into what you feel related to that rejection and go through the healing process, right? So do that. I would encourage you to do that maybe first, because I think for me in particular, I have done a lot of work to healing in those areas. And depending how severe the offense or rejection is, I think some healing needs to take place first so that you're even in a position or a place to think about this next step, which is forgiving the person who rejected you. And then there's going to be more healing that's going to come through that, because you're going to realize different feelings, emotions, and mindsets that you've adopted, right? And that may frustrate you, because it actually a lot of times makes me mad when I think about the lies that I've believed and all this stuff as a result of unforgiveness or, being wounded or stuff like that. So A, begin the healing journey. B, forgive the person who rejected you. And C, begin to intentionally take steps to be more vulnerable and true to who you are, what you feel, your desires in every moment. And take it step by step. Don't just sprint. It's a marathon, because this is what you need to do for the rest of your life. Be more vulnerable in relationships, because it really, truly gives your relationship so much more depth, which is how we were created. We were not created to do life alone. If we were, then I don't think God would have created Eve, because he created Adam first. If we were supposed to do life alone, it could have just been Adam by himself. And then honestly, none of us would be here, right? So we were not created to do life alone. We were created to be surrounded by people. And with that is going to take vulnerability. Yes, it can be scary at times. I am the one who knows that for sure, if you've listened to a lot of episodes of my show. However, now that I am in a place where I'm intentionally trying to be more vulnerable, because I kind of have to, if you're going to be in community with people, especially as close as the situation that I'm in now, because I work at my church. And so I live with people I work with, and there's just, we're around each other a lot. I go to the same gym as these people and this, that, and the other. You have to have some vulnerability, right? But man, I appreciate the depth that I'm seeing relationships in my life have as I'm being more vulnerable, as I'm acting in the opposite spirit, as when I feel fear or anxiety, because I do, it's not like I'm just like, oh, I'm going to be more vulnerable. No, there's still fear and anxiety there. But as I kind of push that to the wind, I guess, and take whatever that little step is, man, it makes it so much easier, and I have less fear and anxiety about it the more that I do it. But the caveat to all this with vulnerability is make sure it's with safe people. Like, I'm not advocating for you to be vulnerable with toxic people. And the reality is that a lot of times we know when people are not safe. We may not know why, but there's something in us, be it I say discernment, other people say intuition, whatever you want to call it, we know. So let me just give that disclaimer that this is with safe people, but you have safe people in your life. If you don't, I encourage you to branch out and find safe people. Like, pray about it, whatever you got to do for the Lord to bring the people to your life that are your people, He will. And you will know they are safe by the way that you feel around them. And then start taking steps to be vulnerable. Because I promise you, the fruit of that will be relationships that have more depth, which is just going to make life just that much better. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, that is what I have for y'all this week. As always, make sure you are taking care of yourself mentally. Make sure you are taking care of yourself emotionally. Make sure you are taking care of yourself physically and spiritually. Be healthy in your relationships. That is so important. Thank you so much for tuning in. I love y'all so much, and I will talk to y'all soon. Bye.
Ladies and gents, this concludes transmission. Tune in next time for a whole new edition. Another adventure and mission to share, be heard, and clarify the vision of this whole new world for